Folks, thanks so much for joining us for how admissions officers review applications. My name is Windsor Jordan. I'm Associate Dean of Director of Access and Equity at Swarthmore College. Thank you so much for joining us. I'll let my other colleagues introduce themselves as well.
Hi, folks. My name is Leanne Dominguez. I'm one of the Senior Assistant Directors of Admission at Scripps College in California. It's a pleasure to be here this morning with you all.
Hey everyone, thank you all so much for being here today. My name is Veronica Pecero and I work as Director for Access and Inclusion at the University of Texas at Austin, and we are super glad that you're here with us today.
Thanks for joining us. I enjoyed that intro music. I didn't know we were getting such great intro music with a proper fade out. It's awesome. So thank you all for hanging out with us. A couple kind of housekeeping things before we dive into the presentation. First, we'll be using the Q&A space in order to answer your questions today. So we're going to have about a 20 or so minute presentation where we're going to talk to you a little bit, but then we're going to turn to your questions. But please, as we're talking to you, use that Q&A space to begin asking us questions about what you're seeing on the screen and about what we're talking about today. So please use that Q&A space lively, because we want to spend a good chunk of our time after the presentation answering your questions. So let's talk about what you should expect in this presentation today in the agenda. First, we're going to briefly talk about our own admissions policies at each of our institutions to give you a sense of how we review applications. Then we're going to spend a little bit of time sharing with you about how admissions officers and what we look for when reviewing applications. And then we're going to talk about the different pieces of the college application and how you can best use them to share your story with us. Lastly, like I said, we're going to answer as many of your questions as possible. And of course, if we don't get all your questions, you're going to have our contact information as well. So you can follow up with us if you'd like to. So first, we're going to kind of talk a little bit about each of our individual institutions.
Awesome. Thank you, Windsor. So I'll start us off as the representative from Scripps College. And we wanted to share first a breakdown of how each of our institutions approach the application process. We are all three very different kinds of institutions and do this a little bit differently. So to give you an idea of how different this process can look, and maybe give you some insight into how you can collect information as you're navigating this process and sorting out what school requires what and deadlines and all of that. So a quick little breakdown on Scripps College. So Scripps is, like I said, in California. We're a small private liberal arts institution, and how we read applications is through a holistic review process. You see that we all say holistic review. So it means every piece of your application is giving us information, and not one piece of the application will determine your decision. It's a combination of all of the factors that come into the application. Scripps is a need-aware institution, which means that financial need is a part of the process within our review process. We're not talking too much about financial aid during our presentation. Happy to break down a little bit more what need aware means. Scripps does meet 100% of need though, and also happy to break that down a little bit later. And as of last year, Scripps has officially gone test optional for all future applicants, which means that if you aren't able to take the test or would prefer not to send your scores, you don't have to, and it won't go negatively against you in the application process. Scripps is a pretty small school. It's a little bit over 1,000 students. And so our admission staff is also pretty small, relatively compared to other institutions. So our team will split up and read each file at least once by one person as a first read. And then we split our team up into group teams. So groups of about 3 to 4 admission officers. We have 2 of those on our staff. So we have 2 reading teams. And together we evaluate applications a second time. So each application is viewed at least twice by at least half of our team. And so through that process, we're really able to understand who you are as a person, as a scholar, and if you would enjoy and would fit within our institution's curriculum and community. Lastly, at Scripps, we accept 2 forms of applications, the common application as well as the QuestBridge application. I'll stop there and let my colleagues break down their skills.
Excellent. So for Swarthmore, just like Scripps, we're within a small liberal arts college of 1,600 students. We also have a small admissions team. We are need blind and also do holistic review, like our friends at Scripps. Need blind means that when we review your applications, we don't look at any financial aid information at all when reviewing applications. And holistic review, like Leanne said, means every single part of your application is important to us, and no one piece of the application is any more important than any other part of the application. And for this cycle that just completed, we are test optional, and for the upcoming cycle, we are also going to be test optional as well. And that means if you don't want to send your SAT or ACT scores to us, you don't have to. So that's our policy in terms of the big picture. In terms of how we do our evaluation process, we employ a process called committee-based evaluation. And this means we have kind of multiple committees that will read your application as we move through the process. And the first read is always going to be 2 admissions officers kind of sitting side by side or in this virtual space, sharing a screen together, sharing information together, and looking at your application together. So it's never just one person reading your application. It's always going to be 2 folks in that first read, sitting together, reading your application and talking through what they're seeing in the application to kind of get a better sense of you. That's really important because that means we get 2 different perspectives on your application, and we get 2 different eyes on your application. And it means we don't miss anything because there's 2 folks kind of looking at the application together and can make sure all different parts of the application are looked at and are spoken for in our process. The first read is always 2 readers, and then if we think your application is going to be competitive in our process, we'll move you on to other additional committees that will review your application with the rest of the students who applied that year. So it's a really CBE, committee-based evaluation, or CBE, means that you kind of multiple different committees looking at your application as you move through our process. We accept 3 different application types. We accept the common application, which most folks are likely familiar with. We're also part of the coalition application process, which is a group of 140 plus schools that have come together to create another way you can apply to college for free. And then the QuestBridge application. We are a QuestBridge partner school, just like our friends over at Scripps. I'll turn it over to Veronica.
Great. So we here at the University of Texas at Austin, we are a public university, obviously in the state of Texas. We have about 50,000 undergraduate students, a little bit different than our 2 colleagues here at Scripps and Swarthmore. We also utilize holistic review, and as both of my colleagues put it perfectly, there's not one piece that's going to be more important than the other. For us, when we say need aware, that just means that whatever financial information you put in that application, and it's typically just, you know, your guesstimate about your family income, that is just seen on the application. It's never an advantage or a disadvantage. It's just, again, context that you're providing to us that can be utilized for some of our scholarship programs and success programs that we have at the University of Texas at Austin. But we don't necessarily are looking like at your FAFSA or your TAFSFA if you're in the state of Texas alongside your application. It's just whatever you provide in that application when you're filling it out. Similar to my colleagues for fall 22, so if you're currently a rising senior and you're looking to apply to UT Austin, we do not require the SAT or ACT. You are welcome to submit them, and then that'll be part of your holistic review. But if you don't, then that's perfectly fine as well. Again, they are not required for this upcoming cycle. In terms of how we evaluate applications, similar in terms of multiple reads by our admission staffs, up to 3 times application for us to, you know, get to know you as much as possible. And that includes our admission staff and some of our external readers as well. There are a couple of exceptions with certain majors where we'll start it off and then it'll be finished by the faculty and staff in that particular major. And a great example of that would be, of course, something like the College of Fine Arts, if they require like an audition or something, or a portfolio, because obviously we're not experts like in music or in how, you know, great you play or how great you dance. So that would be decided by those faculty members. We are on Apply Texas and Coalition for College. So Apply Texas is the main application for our colleges and universities in the state of Texas. So if you are in Texas and that's all you're kind of applying to, then Apply Texas is great. If not, we are also on Coalition for College. Again, tons of more colleges and universities from across the country. So if you're looking to apply to a whole bunch of places, then that might be the better platform for you. Regardless of the application you choose, it's the same questions, same everything. We don't have a preference. We're just making sure that you feel comfortable with whatever platform you're using.
Perfect. And so let's dive into the main question of the day. Excuse me, is what are we looking for when reviewing your applications? One of the things that I want you all to keep in mind as we're talking today is what would you like admissions officers to know about you through your college application process? So even if we're talking about what we're looking for, I want you all to be thinking also about what do you want us to know about your application. In terms of different categories, in terms of what we're looking for when looking at your application, there's kind of some kind of headline things we want to be paying attention to. First is your potential to make a contribution to our campuses. Admissions officers are selecting students to form a well-rounded class, right? So it doesn't mean that you have to be the most amazing leader and the best mathematician and the best piano player. It means that we're looking for the things that you love to do, the conversations that you love to have, the questions that you want to grapple with, and what does that mean about how you will engage on our campuses. We're also looking for evidence of academic success, achievement, and intellectual curiosity. So we're looking for students who will be good academic fits for our institution, and oftentimes students assume that just means having a strong GPA or really high test scores, and certainly showing academic success in those categories is important. But well beyond that, we want to see that you're intellectually curious, asking yourself and others tough questions academically, willing to take intellectual risks, and thinking through problems with your peers. And we find evidence of those things throughout the application, lots of different areas, and we'll talk about that as well. We're also looking for a diversity of experiences and backgrounds. So selecting a well-rounded class also means having a diverse class of students from different backgrounds, perspectives, and experiences. So as a first-generation student or a low-income student or a member of the LGBTQ community, an international student, or even a rural student, you're bringing unique and important and different perspectives to our campuses. So creating a diverse class means supporting you once you get here, as well as looking for how you're going to contribute to the campus. Also looking for your desire to attend our institutions. And so there are 4,000 different four-year colleges all over the country that you could possibly apply to. That's a lot of places. And so you want to do your research to find out what are the things that connect with you about different institutions you're looking to apply to. Why did you pick the schools you want to apply to? What is it about them that's connecting with you? And so that means doing your research to find how different colleges around the country are going to fit your needs and desires and help you achieve the things that you want to achieve. So, I mean, starting with yourself, what do I want to get out of college? What are things I want to do in college? What do I want to experience when I get to college? And what schools check off those boxes for us? Next slide, please. And so there are kind of 4 different big bucket factors and places that we look to find some of these things. And my colleagues are going to go deeper into this, but academic success, like I said before, doesn't just mean GPA and test scores. Those certainly play a role in understanding your academic success, but we're also looking for evidence of academic success in lots of different parts of the application, from your teacher recommendations, to your extracurriculars, to your essay that you're writing. There's lots of other places to show academic success as well. We're also looking for your story. Contrary to popular belief, the application is not about the colleges, it's about you and what you want to get out of your college. So looking for your story is all about understanding how to share your authentic voice with us in the application. My colleagues will talk about that as well. Extracurricular activities are really important too. There are lots of places where we get context for what you do in and at a school in the application, and your after-school jobs you have are just as important as your volunteer opportunities you might be taking advantage of, your school clubs, and the extracurricular life is how we start to envision you participating in the life of our colleges as well. Other part of the application is your outside perspectives that we have from your teacher recommendations to your council recommendations, to the alumni interview you might do with a college. All those outside perspectives play a role in getting a chance to understand you too. So although we're looking for your authentic voice in the application, these other perspectives help us understand how you might contribute to our campuses as well. So I'll turn it over to my colleagues to talk more about each of these different elements.
Yeah, so now we're going to get a little bit more in depth on some of the different application materials and what we're actually kind of looking for when you're submitting those. So first and foremost, obviously your transcripts and academic record, we're trying to see that strength of the academic background. Were you able to take advantage of those more rigorous coursework that was available at your high school, such as AP, IB, dual credit? One thing I'll mention is we want to make sure that we're taking context into account and understand that not all high schools may have the same opportunities or the same coursework available for students. So really, this is where that maybe if you submit a school profile, if that is required or if applicable, looking at, what is offered at your high school and what did you take advantage of. The other thing is standardized test scores, and we have a big if applicable, because again, for all of us that are on this call, those are optional or not required for this cycle, but it's really important to do your research as you are applying to different colleges and universities, because different colleges and universities are going to have different requirements, right? So if they are submitted, it's kind of looking at the competitiveness of the score, the score by section, if applicable, by that college or university, and just overall seeing the college readiness. Academic and career interest. For some colleges and institutions, they admit by major. So they may be looking at, how well prepared are you for that major? What is your sincere interest in it? Why do you want to go into that particular career plan? So again, just kind of seeing what kind of aligns in terms of maybe the coursework you've taken, your extracurricular activities, and kind of how all that goes into what you're thinking of potentially being when you grow up. And then resume, again, another if applicable, because different colleges and universities have different requirements, but this is a great way to kind of showcase a little bit more about what you're actually doing. In our application platforms, you may not have enough space to be able to detail exactly what clubs or organizations or community service or jobs you're doing and go more in depth into them. So a resume is a great opportunity for us to really see the depth of your involvement. If you have leadership positions, if you've done special projects within certain organizations or projects within a certain, internship or work experience that you have. So it's just another great opportunity to get to know you a little bit better. And then, of course, essays and other written responses. This will vary across the board. Some may have, one essay and short answers. Others may have, multiple essays or multiple short answers. But really, it's about hearing your story, hearing your voice, and just really getting to know you a little bit better. Extracurricular activities, honors, and achievements. We've already kind of discussed this a little bit, but I think it's important to note that quality, not quantity aspect of it, because a student could have, 20 organizations on, their resume or application, but maybe they're just, going to a meeting once a week versus maybe another student who has maybe just one or two activities, but they've been involved with it, since they were young, and they spend, the majority of their time there, and they have progression in their leadership. So again, just kind of seeing that overall involvement that you have, how it aligns with your career interest, and just your overall engagement in terms of leadership, community, and maybe family responsibilities. I know we always tell our students that you may not have a lot of organizations, but perhaps you have a lot of family responsibilities at home, or you're more of a leader in the community. So all of that goes into that holistic review process. And then we see here letters of recommendation and admissions interviews. Again, if applicable, not all schools are going to have interviews or are going to require letters of recommendation, but that's more of that outside perspective, kind of seeing, why you want to attend a certain institution, why you maybe want to be in a certain major. And some institutions do consider demonstrated interest in their process. So again, this is why it's so important to do your research as you're looking at the different institutions and kind of see what are their different requirements that they have. And then interest in college, again, why are you interested in going to a particular institution? Is it going to be a great fit for you? And we'll be able to kind of see that throughout the application as well. And then I'll pass it on to my colleague to go into a little bit more depth about some of these items.
Thank you, Veronica. So digging in a little bit more into what we're looking for, as we've all shared, we all do practice holistic review. So we're looking at the numerical parts of your application, your transcripts, test scores if you've submitted them, but then also all this other stuff that helps us understand who you are, what you're interested in, why you're interested in those things, and that's your story. And starting off with the essays, the personal statement, I think often this is the main piece that students will know as the place where they're telling their story. This is really your opportunity within the essays to share your authentic voice, share who you are, and also showcase your writing. And that's because we're all also trying to determine your writing ability and if it's a good match and good preparation for our curriculums at each of our institutions. Approaching the essay, I think, as someone who is sometimes a little less confident about my writing, I think the essay brought the most stress for me within the application process. Know that there are different people that can help you within this process: your teachers, counselors, older siblings, anybody that you trust as a writer and as someone that knows you. Definitely spend some time thinking about your essays and what you want to share with institutions this summer before you start to submit applications. There's different approaches that folks can take with the essays and the personal statements. Some people are really good poets and express themselves through song lyrics, through poems. That is a completely acceptable approach to the essay or the personal statement, not if that's not how you write and that's not how you're used to writing. So take the essays and the personal statement as an opportunity to talk about yourself, which is very different than any other form of writing you've done, but also do it in a way that's genuine to the way that you communicate and the way that you tell your story. In terms of the short answer college specific prompts, I know the QuestBridge application has a lot of short answers. Also, some schools will have school specific questions. For example, Scripps has a question that we require all students to respond that asks, why are you applying to Scripps? That gives us further insight into your life, into your interests, into what you're thinking about academically and socially. Like Windsor had said, we're thinking about your intellectualness as well. So what are those hard questions you enjoy asking yourself? Or what are those nerdy topics you like to break down with your friends? Or what are those YouTube holes that you get yourself into because you're just so excited about the things you're learning? These are all things that you can share with us, and often short answer prompts allow you to share a little bit more and expand on more than what your essay or personal statement has allowed for. And then the college specific prompts goes back to what Veronica was sharing with us about your interest in the school, and if you've done your own research to showcase to yourself that this place that you're applying to would be a good place to nurture your growth, both as a person and as a scholar during your collegiate years. Lastly, there are additional information sections in literally every application that you submit. And that is really a space for you to provide us any other context we need to understand what we're looking at. If you had multiple moves during your college years, this is a great place for you to break that down so that we know that you weren't just in one club once a year and then left because you didn't care. You left because you couldn't stay involved because you moved, or a bunch of other things that could have influenced your academic or personal career during high school. Additional information sections are a great place to break that down. I would say to stay away from repeating things in the additional information section that we could find in other places. For example, the additional information section is not the best place to list a resume, especially if the school doesn't require it. And since a lot of our applications already ask for that kind of information about the things that you're involved in a separate activity section. Next slide, please. Thank you. And then we're also looking at outside perspectives, and we've broken this down a little bit already, but for schools that do require recommendations, know that you can have a variety of folks write on your behalf. And it's important to know what schools require. For example, Scripps requires a minimum of 2 letters of recommendation from an academic teacher, but we accept letters from everybody else. So if you have past teachers, if you have coaches, supervisors, other folks in your community that have seen your progress as a student, as a person within the community, those are super helpful for us to give us context to who you are as a classmate, as a colleague, and how you would contribute to our communities, since all of our communities are not just places where you're learning, but you're living and growing within a community. Also, the school report. I didn't know the school report existed when I was applying to colleges. The school report is something that is filled out by your counselor or a school official, and it gives us a little bit more context to your school. So if you're thinking, my school doesn't offer AP classes, is that going to go against me? No, the answer is no. But also, admission officers will get to know the curriculum at your each individual schools through the school report and get to know what's offered, what kinds of courses have been offered, if there's any special like dual enrollment programs or anything like that. We're going to get to know all of that information through your school report, and through that outside perspective, better understand your high school experience in the context of your time. So yeah, It's important for us to hear your story, but also we get to know your story through all of that information that we're gathering. And that is, in essence, holistic review.
Great. And then to wrap it up in just a bit and start to answer some of the questions that are coming in, just some final pieces of advice. First and foremost, acceptances and non-acceptances do not define you. This can be a very overwhelming and daunting process for a lot of folks. And this may be, one of the first times that you may receive a letter that says, I'm sorry that at this time we cannot accept you, or congratulations, you're coming. At the end of the day, it's really about what is going to be the best place for you, and not, what your friends are doing, or maybe even what your family is pushing you to do. At the end of the day, it's really what you want and where you're going to really thrive. So as acceptances and possibly non-acceptances come in, remember that is just, it doesn't define you. You're going to experience so much growth at whatever college or institution that you end up attending. So please don't let that, kind of overwhelm you and kind of be that defining piece for you, because you have so much more that's going to happen in your life. The second thing is just remembering to connect with your colleges and universities. So you can really, first off, understand what that college and university provides, what the opportunities and resources are, but to see if that's actually going to be a really good fit. Aside from it, maybe having the career plan or the academic interest that you're looking to see, is it going to be in a place that you're actually going to see yourself in 4 years, for 4 years, right? So a city, more rural, by the ocean, not by the ocean, the weather. I mean, all of those little things may not seem important, but they really are when you're thinking about actually moving somewhere and living there for 4+ years. So it's really important that you get to know that institution and also understand what the requirements are, all of that kind of stuff. So try to do those visits if you can. Right now is perfect time. This past year, many of us have provided so much virtual programming, so much virtual campus tours, that if you don't have the opportunity to be able to travel, across the country and see all of these institutions, right now, being able to just go on a virtual campus tour and interact one-on-one virtually is a fantastic way to get to know those institutions. So make sure to sign up for, those email lists. We won't spam you, I promise, but we always have a bunch of great opportunities, programming, maybe giveaways, like you just never know. So just making sure that you stay in the know about those deadlines, requirements, and just special events that are happening. And also the opportunity to be able to meet your admissions counselor. They are there to help you. They're there to be able to walk you through what are the requirements, the deadlines, what should I be thinking about? Also getting to meet current students at that institution and seeing, what has their experience been like? What advice do they have for you? And then also alumni, like what can happen once you get a degree from, XYZ institution? What are the outcomes? That's really important as well. And then, like I've kind of mentioned, at the end of the day, it's choosing the best path for you, where you feel most comfortable, and you'll find that you'll be able to tell when you either attend an institution for a visit or connect with some of those students or alumni, and really be able to envision yourself there for the next 4 years. So, words of wisdom for you all. Was I supposed to wrap it up too? I'll go ahead and wrap it up. Awkwardness on Zoom, it never ends, right? So here's all of our awesome pictures and all of our information. We also have these great QR codes at the bottom if you all want to take a picture or try to get the link to it. And it'll take you all to our visit pages or to sign up for our mailing list. Again, great opportunity to get to know all of us. But we are really excited that you are all here today and that wanted to learn a little bit more about kind of how we review applications. And now I think we're gonna start looking through some of those questions and see how many we can answer. But any final words, Leanne and Windsor, before we move on to the Q&A?
No,
Awesome.
Veronica, I think you wrapped it up nicely. Just if anybody's interested in checking out those virtual opportunities that we've all really put a lot of time and love into this last year, check out those QR codes, because that's how you'll be able to find the virtual ways to get to know our institutions a little bit better.
Great. Well, I guess we'll go ahead and move to some of the questions. And I'll start first because that one's for me, and then I'll let you all jump in on the other questions. So somebody asked specifically for my institution, I believe UT has an auto admit rule for Texas students. So if we qualify for auto admit, how does the admissions process work? Is it the same for a student who doesn't qualify for auto admit? So great question. Yes. So the University of Texas at Austin, we do have a law for auto acceptance to the University of Texas at Austin. For this this upcoming cycle, if you are in the top 6% of your high school class, you are automatically accepted to the University of Texas at Austin. Obviously, you have to submit your application, do all the requirements, etc. That means you are automatically accepted to the university. It does not mean that you're automatically accepted to your first choice major. So regardless if you are an automatic admission student or not, every single person goes through holistic review. So we had over 66,000 applications this past year. All 66,000 went through holistic review. So even if you are automatically admitted, you are still going to go through that process to see if you are able to get that first choice. If you're not, we also look at your second choice. And if you are not selected for your first or second choice, then we do offer our automatic admitted students a place in a major that still has room available. So that is kind of how our process works. And I'm happy to drop a link in the chat that explains a little bit more about that. But I'll pass it on to my colleagues for the other question.
Yeah, I'll take the next one here on the list here. My other colleagues, of course, can chime in if they want to say more about this. The question is, does declining or not adding your race or ethnicity to your college application put you at some type of disadvantage? And it doesn't, right? So all the application forms that I'm aware of will ask you, hey, how do you identify? And they'll give you lots of options to do that in terms of race and ethnicity. You can leave that space blank if you like to. You don't have to fill that out. In colleges, obviously because of law, we don't have quotas and things like that. We're not looking to bring in a specific number of any type of students. We're looking to bring in a class that represents hopefully lots of different perspectives, lots of different backgrounds, have lots of different interests. So when we think about this question, diversity is also often thought of as being just about race, ethnicity, or gender, or sexual orientation, but it also means your interests, your perspectives, where you're coming from in the country, where you live. Do you live in a suburban environment or a rural environment? All those things are ways to think about diversity as well. But those questions about race, ethnicity do give us context for you as a student, right? And so if you want to share those things with us, it helps us learn a little bit more about you, where you're coming from, your perspective. But there is no requirement that you have to do that on our applications.
I'll take the next question. We have someone asking about early decision and regular decision. So first, for folks that don't know about early options, some schools may provide an early decision option or an early action option. Early action, I'd say, is the least intense, because it basically is an earlier deadline where you can apply to a school. And if you're admitted, awesome, you have that admission decision there in your pocket, but you can continue on and apply to other schools throughout the application cycle. That is different than early decision. Early decision is binding, which means that you should only apply to one school for early decision. And along with your normal application materials, you also sign a document declaring basically that if you are admitted by that institution, you are going. And you sign it, your guardian signs it, and then your high school counselor signs it. So everybody is informed on what your process is. So for speaking specifically from Scripps, we only have early decision as an option. And then for other folks, they can apply regular decision. The admission rate is higher for folks applying for early decision. But I would say don't use that as a strategy to get into a school. Especially if it's an early decision process, because it is binding, like I said. And if you're admitted to that institution, you're expected to retract your applications from every other school and say that you are going to that one campus. And so while admission rates are a little higher, it makes sense, at least for Scripps, the numbers are a little smaller for folks that are applying early decision. Often, and you should know that that school is your top choice. And so the match with our institution is a little stronger. So it ends up having a little bit of a higher admit rate. But for students applying to Scripps or for schools like ours, if you really still want the option, if you want the ability to compare financial aid packages, or if you're just not ready to declare that a school is your top choice in early November, don't apply early. You can definitely still go through the regular decision process. Windsor or Veronica, is there anything you'd like to add to early decision versus regular decision?
I would just add, this is where the research is really, really important because so many different schools and universities have different policies. So like UT Austin, we do not have early action or early decision. We have a priority deadline, but that is non-binding. It really, and there's no advantage in the process. It's literally like, if you want to know a decision a month earlier, great, submit it by this deadline. If not, you can wait for the final deadline. But we often get so many emails that are like, early action, early decision. And I'm like, no, I promise this is non-binding. Like there's not, so it's just really, really important that as you're making your list that you put, is it early decision, early action? Do they just not do any of that? That way you don't get confused. And then that way you're not stressing yourself out about a particular institution. So research is super important. That's all I wanted to add.
Great. So we have another question. Oh, sorry, Windsor, I jumped ahead of you. We have another question about asking about test scores, which is a super relevant question, especially since we all have shared that we're test optional for this coming cycle. So a breakdown there, if a student chooses not to submit their score, especially in these last 2 years, we don't make any assumptions about what that means in either direction, actually, if they've submitted or they haven't submitted. For students that choose not to submit a score, it may be because they weren't able to take the test. It may be because they want other parts of their application to be considered and they don't want that to be a factor. We suggest within our admission office to submit a score if you have it, if it falls within our ranges, since it is going to be a part of our evaluation process when we're looking through the applications. But yeah, if we don't see scores from a student, it's not going negatively against them in any way. We are able to make our determination through all the other information we have, your transcript, your essays, all those other pieces that we mentioned during this presentation. Those are all super valuable. The test score is definitely a helpful number, but for us, it has never been this thing that divides or makes it clear for us if a student is an admitted student or not. So yeah, don't think that if you're not submitting your score, it's going to go against you in any way. It definitely doesn't.
The only thing I'll just add quickly to that was wonderful, Leanne. Really, really important you all hear that. The other thing I'll add is that no one's going to ask you what your SAT or your ACT score was when you get on our campuses, right? No one's going to ask you that. They're going to ask you, what do you want to learn and why? What's really important to you? What drives you intellectually? Those are going to be the really important questions they're going to ask you. That's why those parts of the application, like intellectual curiosity, how you engage with others in the classroom, are really important questions because that's what's going to matter when you get on our campuses. So don't forget those parts of the application are really important to understanding how you are as a student. Another question we got here is about how do you share information regarding concussions or changes or deaths in the family and the impact on grades that may have. If you're a student who got sick during this past year with COVID and that impacted your grades, if you are in a situation where maybe a family death happened sadly during the year and that impacted your grades, you can really use that additional information section to tell us that, talk about that. If that didn't impact your grades at all and things were fine, maybe things weren't fine socially, maybe you weren't able to engage with your peers because something had happened outside the classroom. So you can use that additional information section to share information that you want to share with us. But if you're uncomfortable sharing the information with us, you don't have to, right? But we do, in a holistic review, if we do see a dip in grades, if we do see a space in which we're like, oh, what happened with this particular class? They were doing fine and now something happened. We're going to ask ourselves in our review, what happened here? And so you can help us out by providing that information to us. But of course, don't share anything with us that you're uncomfortable sharing with us.
Great. I'll go ahead and answer the next question. So is the University of Texas the only school to accept top 6% of students of a class if they apply? So I can only speak for the state of Texas and our laws. So in the state of Texas, we do have a law that if institution is state funded, so basically like a public institution like the University of Texas at Austin, the law is a top 10%. So if you're in the top 10% of your class, you're automatically eligible to be accepted into those public institutions like Texas A&M, University of North Texas, et cetera. There is an exception for UT Austin because of our size and how many students were applying. So in the state of Texas, we are the only ones that are in that top 6%. It is a lower threshold than the top 10% for the other institutions. So that is all I can say about the state of Texas. I'm not sure if other states have similar policies. So if you're interested in colleges in Texas for our state funded institutions, just making sure you ask them that question. But specifically for UT, from my knowledge, we're the only ones that utilize that top 6%.
I'm going to sneak in and answer this last question before we end today, and my other colleagues can jump in as well. I always say to students that are waitlisted at the end of a cycle, which can be really challenging. If you still issue that institution, you really like that institution, let that institution know you really like them. You're at the top of their list, right? Because if we do go to the wait list, we're usually looking for students who are still interested and are excited and are going to say yes to us if we're able to offer space off our wait list. And for students who are maybe taking a deferment for a year, that's something that lots of colleges will allow for folks to do as well. So it's something that again, you can choose to do at a place like Swarthmore. You can choose to defer for a year, and that's something you can do on a case-by-case basis. We generally allow students to defer for a year if they choose to do so and want to take advantage of that opportunity. But my colleagues jump in if they have other advice about wait lists.
I think the only other piece I'll add is if you are waitlisted or deferred, it's definitely do the steps that Windsor highlighted if you're still interested in that institution. But definitely give another school a chance. Consider another place that you could be a good fit for. Something that I've learned within this profession that I wish I would have known as a first generation college applicant is that there isn't just one place that's going to be good for you. There are so many institutions, and often we may not know about them because of name recognition or where you live. But know that there is going to be more than one place that will be a good fit for you, that will support your academic and your personal goals.
Well, I think those are all of the questions, and we are right at time. So if my colleagues, do y'all have any last words that y'all would like to share? Promote your institution, whatever you would like.
Yeah, because I quickly, I didn't do this in the opening and I meant to. I want to wish everybody a happy Juneteenth. For those folks who are maybe just learning about Juneteenth, it's a day of remembrance and celebration of the emancipation for former African slaves. So I just want to make sure I said that, and I hope everybody's thinking about the day from that perspective as you go through it. And if you'd like, if you're juniors listening to this now, or it could be high school seniors in the fall, Swarthmore does have our fly-in program, Discover Swarthmore. Application is up right now. If you want a free chance to come check out Swarthmore, you can do that. Use the QR code. You'll find more information there as well.
Leanne, anything? Oh, put it in the chat. She said, thank you all for joining us. And yes, thank you all so much again for being here. We are really excited that, y'all were able to listen to us. And again, do your research, but also enjoy your summer and just enjoy your senior year as well. So thank you. And I almost said what we always say, which is hook 'em, but we have other colleagues here. So just thank you all so much again. And I hope y'all have a great rest of your weekend. Bye, y'all.